we're going to work on the wipers today. I'm going to put the 2-speed wiper motor I got. Pretty cool little kit to improve on the single speed wiper motor that comes with these trucks. And we're going to try to do some sound deadener on the floors inside too. Pretty excited to get past that. We'll start putting this interior back together the rest of the way. Putting the wiper transmission in now. Let's go take a look. I'm going to let this proportioning valve gravity bleed a little bit. I'll have to have a helper on Monday finish it up with me. But wiper transmission, fairly simple. If you're working on a truck that you bought, didn't have this stuff in it, and you don't know how it goes, this slides down in the hole underneath all the way past, and then you pull it back to get it over here. This is going to set your angle. Like, this is obviously going to be too steep. It's going to sit like this so that the wipers are parallel with the windshield. Tuck it up through this little hole. Easier said than done. There you go. And these 2 little screws on each side hold it together. When I took this assembly out, I just screwed the screws back in so it wouldn't get lost. If you're tearing yours down, I highly recommend putting the bolts back in the parts as you remove them. And then don't throw anything out until you've put it all back together. It takes up a lot of space, I know, but man, some of this hardware is crazy. I saw some bolts and nuts that were $9 for one bolt for certain things because it had a shoulder on it or something unusual. So it was hard to find something else to work. You really needed that bolt. And I think they kind of know that when they're selling them. So they're expensive. So I highly recommend keeping everything carefully categorized. This should be a 5/16 bolt, 2 on each side. And the wiper transmission's in. We can go in the cab and start doing the motor. Ratchet's a little bit overkill for these, but it's what I had handy. It'll work. Very careful of the windshield though. These are only literally a few foot-pounds. If I was going to use a torque wrench, I'd probably go to about 89 inch-pounds. This is what the kit looks like. We got some miscellaneous parts for other goodies. I bought some vent window handles, which, since I got vent windows, it came with them. So I got vent window handles if anybody needs some for their 60 to 66 C10. I think these are 60 to 63, but they might fit this 64 to 66. This is what the kit looks like. Wow. Comes with the adapter bracket to bolt the later model wiper motor onto your firewall bracket, basically is what it is. Make sure there's nothing else in the box. Don't want to throw anything I need away. Flyers to let me know about the world's largest GM truck event from last year. I bought this stuff a long time ago in preparation for this momentous day. Very exciting getting this stuff back in, getting the interior back together, getting this thing on the road. Can't wait. Comes with a 2-speed wiper switch. Comes with a full wiring harness ready to go. You just hook it all up. You get your power and ground on these leads. And I am going to put a wiring harness in this truck. So for today, we're going to bolt it in. It's not going to be made operational yet, but we'll show you how the kit goes in. The wiring part's pretty straightforward as well. So this is going to bolt in place where the original wiper motor was, which is more like a box. This is, it almost looks like a rear wiper motor from like an SUV or a Blazer or something like that, maybe. Not sure. These connectors are going to go on my wiper switch, which should be labeled. Let's open that up, take a look. I'm going to wire everything in that I can, hook up the switch and all. Maybe I'll hook battery power to it just to show how it works at the end when I'm done. But all these little packages come with some kind of notes you got to keep just in case. Tells you where to hook up your wire, H, P, L, and red. So low speed, high speed, park, and power. We'll definitely hold on to that. Comes with gaskets for the front where it comes out of the firewall into the engine compartment or cowl. And it looks like it comes with new hardware. I saved the hardware. Again, every time I remove anything, I save the bolts and nuts that came off of it. So I've got the bolts and nuts right now in the holes where the wiper motor was. But it looks like in this case, I didn't really have to save it. Anyone who watches my day in the shop videos knows that when I'm working on customers' cars. I use whatever hardware is better. If the replacement hardware looks like cheap junk and the original hardware has nice washers built into it and all kinds of other things, then I'll reuse the original hardware. You don't have to have new hardware because you had a new part. You have to have the best hardware for the job, in my opinion. That's what I'm gonna do with mine too. I'm gonna go look at what I've got in the dash from the factory. The only concern would be, I think I have slight taper on the bolts. They have like a washer built in and I have a taper to them for the original motor. So we'll take a look at it and see. One lock washer, one flat washer on each nut. And then I've got 2 extra bolts and an extra lock washer and flat washer. We'll find out why when we take a look at the instructions. Maybe for a ground wire or something like that, I'm not sure. This should be a chassis ground type setup. Let's take a look at the instructions and we'll come back. They want you to use silicone or RTV to glue the gasket on. Put a little bit of, I'll put a little bit of weather stripping cement on there to glue it. It's not coming off. So they give you 2 gaskets, I guess. If it doesn't sit flush and tight against the firewall, they'll use the second one. It doesn't mention the second one. I'm wondering if I got 2 and I wasn't supposed to. Freebie. Then it just says install the wiper motor. Shows it facing down. I'm going to look in my dash and see what looks best to me. I guess that's going to be the way it's going to have to go. I have an air conditioning unit that's going to go in this truck. I got to make sure it's not going to hit this way, but I would assume it won't. Maybe that's why it faces down instead of sideways. Then it says put everything back together. Cycle the motor. You hook power and ground up. It does have a ground lead I see on the harness. I plan on putting a strip for ground and a strip for power leads, but that'll have like 6 or 8 screws on them, so that rather than cutting into the harness on older vehicles that I built, I would always cut into the harness and go, I got to add another 12-volt supply, another battery supply, another ground, whatever the case may be. This one I'm going to use like basically like a bus bar, I guess you'd call it, for add-on powers and add-on grounds that I don't have to drill more holes, cut into wires I already wired and things like that. So something to think about on your project too. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a later video. Let's go ahead and get this thing bolted in. All right, my screws in here are not going to work with this wiper motor, which I kind of wondered because they have this cool little taper on them. They have this cool little taper on them that works in the factory motor, but not in my replacement one. So we'll got these screws out of our way. We'll have to use those Phillips that came with the wiper motor, which I'm not too crazy about, but we'll be all right. We'll make it work. It turns out that was a great name for the channel because I find myself doing it almost all day, every day. Should be fairly straightforward. I might block the camera a little bit while I'm working, but I'll do my best. Kind of leaning on one knee, holding the wiper motor with 2 fingers. I turn the screw with the left hand. All right, not so bad. Feels like the cushion pushes on the firewall a bit. I'm gonna snug up a couple of bolts, go outside, and see if I can see the foam pushing on the firewall. It's probably a little dark with my arms all up in there. I'm just gonna snug these up. If I can get this just a little snug and the foam is touching, then I know I won't need the second one. That is a little bit of a squeeze here, getting this last screw. I ended up having to use my little gear wrench tool. I got this little gear wrench stubby bit set that comes with Phillips and all kinds of Torx and things that you put them in a 12-point or a ratchet wrench, like a gear wrench. Either that or I was going to take that wiper motor off the adapter bracket. So I got this instead. If you don't have one of these, you're going to have to take the bolts out and take that thing off of the wiper motor adapter bracket. So that's tight. Foam's pressed up nicely against the outside. I'm going to hook up the wiring while we're in here. I just got to go to the other side to do it. Now, all I got to do is, allegedly, come out here, hook up my wiper arm. It's a 7/16 bolt. You can see how the foam's pressed real good. So we're good to go there. Now we're not sure. I'm assuming this motor comes shipped in the park position, but I don't know. So I'm just going to bolt it on. You don't want to put it all together and put your wipers on. You want to hook everything up. I'm going to have to run wiring to it so that I can run it. I'll get my jump box maybe and hook it up with some alligator clips so I can run the wiper motor, make sure it's in park, because I do want to put my wiper and cowl parts, the covers and everything, back on today too if I can, if time permits. It's a nylon lock nut, so you're fighting that nylon a little bit, but it's going to be a good thing because it's not going to come loose from vibration and stuff. There's only 2 positions that this can go on the motor, but it shouldn't matter. Once you find park, no matter where it is, you put your wipers in the right place, it's a revolution or so to get back to park, so it's just going to go back in the same spot. So as long as you run the motor, turn it on and then turn it back off and let it stop, that's where your wipers go. I did lubricate all my hinge points and lubricate these, make sure everything's going to work nice and free. All right, it should be good. Let's see if we can get power hooked up to this thing somewhere. All right, now I've got my little diagram, I've got my wiring harness. Now the switch goes in from the back and these little lock nuts hold her in place. So what I can do is hook up my wiring, push it in from the back, no big deal. I don't have to like finagle wiring through the hole or anything crazy like that because the bulk of the switch is behind. So I'll hook up these wires real quick. It's going to be blue, goes to the park. I hope it shows up on camera. It looks a little dark in here to me, but I've got a bunch of lighting going. It just got overcast outside and made it darker. Low is yellow. The only bad thing about some of these add-on aftermarket accessory type things is they don't have a one-piece connector that you just hardwire and you plug it in like the factory connectors. So you just have to deal with that. It is labeled on here someday if you have to take it back apart and you lose the instructions. B is the power wire, and there's only one left. So that means high is going to be the white wire. I still look at the instructions for it just because if it turns out something's wrong with the color, I know I got something else in the wrong spot. All this wiring harness stuff's coming out of here, but I want to route it mechanically in the right place as far as on my brackets. There's a flat on the wiper switch. That's how I know which hole it goes in. It's the only hole with a flat on it. It looks like I could put it anywhere I want. Oh no, it won't fit in the other ones. That's definitely going to be the only one. Oh, it's a little small for the hole. Wasn't expecting that. I'm going to run this back. The nuts aren't very pretty for this. I wish it came with a little bit fancier of a decorative nut like the other switches do, but that's all right. You could put put some kind of a decal behind, silver foil, something like that if you really wanted to, if you got a really fancy truck or car. Now I do have to, there's a flat in there for this lock screw, and the switch is labeled wiper. I want it to face up, right? So I have to get the, I hope the switch will line up correctly where I want it to go. The flat I'm going to put towards the top. That's how that knob will line up correctly. I'm gently using the socket, trying not to scratch my dash too much. Doesn't have to be crazy tight, just enough. You don't want it vibrating loose and flopping around your dash when you're done. Now, my screw that holds the knob on goes flat. I'm just using a pocket screwdriver. It was pretty tight getting it loose too. They don't play around with this thing. There you go. Boom. Got the jump box hooked up to the power and ground. Everything else works through the switch. So now, reach in here. Wipers. Hey. Oh, you guys can't hardly even see it, can you? Look at them some gums. Now when I shut it off, no matter where I shut it off at, it's going to park right there, right? Let it go past, and it'll go all the way around, and then stop when it gets back to there. So now I know when I put my wiper arms on, it's going to spin them up and back just like from the factory, except now I got low and high speed. Let's get that wiper cowl and start getting some of those body panels on here. This thing's going to look like a truck by the end of the day. It's going to look more like a truck by the end of the day. All right, the wiper cowl panel will be the last panel we install. This panel here is something that I fixed a bunch of rust holes in a bunch of videos ago. Some of these bolts, the threads aren't too good in this hole up here, but we're gonna put something in there. There was 2 bolts holding this on before. We're gonna at least get 3.5 holding it on. I might have to run a tap through that one or something. We'll see. Takes a little tricky double elbow job to get her in there. I thought about getting new emblems here, but you know, the whole snowball thing, where does it end kind of deal. So I didn't. I may, I'm pretty handy with the paint, so I may paint the bow tie red and paint it black in here in the vented area like it came from the factory, even though it's pitted pretty bad. It'll look good from 10 feet away, right? Let's tighten these bolts up here, man. We're getting close. This thing's almost got all the body panels back on it. Oh, it's so exciting. I'm gonna even have to use an open end wrench, I think, on that one. Can't get my socket on it. I don't want to go out of my way to damage stuff, even with a patina truck. It just feels silly. I'm gonna finish tightening this panel up. When we come back, we'll be putting that wiper cowl on. All right, guys, about ready to put this wiper cowl vent cover on. I got a new rubber, I don't know what you call this thing. I got a new rubber dealio. It goes in between the wiper cowl vent cover and the hood. It touches the hood and kind of helps stop engine heat from coming back towards the windshield, I guess. Maybe it helps stop water going towards the truck engine compartment. But this is going to go down here, plunk, and it's going to get screwed in place. There's a couple of screw holes I still have to drill in the cowl that I didn't drill till I wanted to be sure after I put this in. I knew I would be able to do it. So that's about where that's going to go. Kind of have to put the metal grill in place, and this goes in between them, and they'll kind of hold this in. I had to punch holes in it. It doesn't come with pre-drilled holes or pre-punched holes, so I just use a leather punch and punch some holes in the rubber. You can also use, I have a gasket maker kit that has little hole tools that are very sharp. You just hit them onto a block of wood. You can cut them that way too. So if you do get one, the holes don't come punched in it. Kind of surprised me when I took it out of the package, but not a big deal. Let's see if we can get this thing in place. All the panels will be back on this truck. I was wondering if that was ever going to really happen. Seemed like the welding and fabrication part was taking forever. I'm sure it did for you guys too. Now this has little slots that all those little catches slips back onto. I hope it fits onto them. I haven't tried it yet. Oh yeah. Go around the other side, make sure that's in. I don't want to get too crazy. Put the rubber in my first visible hole. Man, that's a big hood. Tell you what, I can't find a hole. Promise that's the first time it's ever happened. I need something to stand on. I'm short, I guess. I have a stand around here somewhere. There it is. Oh, it's got my, I want to try to put some sound mat on the floor. Kills mat or whatever name you want to call it. There's a lot of people call it by the brand name, but I don't. You know what's happening is it's shifted off to the right side, I believe. There it is. Okay. Now if I can get this started, this is supposed to be the easy part. So once all the fabricating is done, then the final fitment goes very smoothly usually. I'm not going to tighten that yet. Oh, I do need to get the, I can use a pair of needle nose to pull my little washer line out of there. This one should line up now. It's easier than it looks. And I'm trying really hard not to scratch my windshield or the roof or any of the stuff that I want to leave looking nice. The rest of the truck I'm not too worried about, telling you the truth, but just between you and me. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. I can drill this hole, but I think I'll start the other three on the other side. The holes where I know they go. I'm gonna finish getting this fit in here. I'll show you what it looks like when we're all done. It's really not too hard. It'd be better if I had someone helping me out. When you guys live closer and can come over and help me out a little bit, that would be great. Maybe I'll get Rain Man Ray over here on a collab. I thought he lived a lot further away. I think he's like an hour and 30 minutes away over on the coast. Anyway, I'm finished screwing this in. We'll come back and show you what it looks like. All right, we're gonna put these wipers on so we can get the washer dealio hooked up. I think the dealio is going to go that way because the way these work, you slide it onto your post, and then when you take the tension off, you can pull this pin out and then dunk, on they are. This probably needs to go a little further. Now I'm going to run this washer hose 3/16. I got a little union. It's actually a vacuum union, but it'll work. They work pretty well actually. The only question is how long will it last if it's out in the sun a lot, things like that. But into my cowl and pull the hose out into the engine compartment somewheres. I'm going to go into the cowl here, but I'm going to pull it down as a, there's a hole in the firewall. I think it's made for the washers when they have them. This truck didn't have them. It probably did at some point, but when I got it, it didn't have any. So I just decided to do the Jeep washers, and they work really well, and they go with the wiper when as it squirts, as it runs across the windshield, it wets it, so they work pretty well. that should be good. We'll have to pay attention to how that works as far as not catching anything when I start running the truck more. I think we'll be good though. Got my antenna in. I did that really quick. That was a simple, I bought this really cheap online, see if it works. Hopefully it picks up decent reception. It got good reviews, 20 bucks. 10mm bolt on the bottom with a big washer. And the antenna wire itself is the washer. Bolted on from underneath just to cover the nasty hole. And ran the wire inside for now. When I hook up the stereo and all, we'll find out how well it works. This one's a little crooked. That's kind of strange. It is what it is, I guess. In the factory, they were never perfectly straight either. I might have to bend that arm a little bit because that's gonna bother me a little. I gotta be honest. All right, wipers are in, wiper cowl's in. I got a roll of sound mat right here. And I sprayed this all down with brake clean earlier today before we started so that it would be nice and dry when I start rolling the sound deadener mat down. And like I said in other videos, I'm not going to cover every square inch. It's just a waste of material. You need a certain amount of square inches, like 6 square inches per square foot roughly, because all you're doing is stopping metal vibrating and transmitting and amplifying sound because it's shaking and things like that. And that sound mat works great as an insulator. You don't have to cover every square inch. You can if you like. There's no harm, no foul. It just costs more money, and it might make a minor improvement for a substantial amount more money. So in any event, I'm going to cover a lot of it. I'll probably leave it off some of the corners. I'll probably leave it off the bolt, so if I do want to remove that cover again, I'll be able to do that. Why I would ever need to do that, I don't know. But it makes me feel better knowing I could if I want. So I'm going to prep this up a little bit more, and then we'll get started laying that sound mat down. This is like a smorgasbord, or like the buffet of project truck videos. This stuff I got comes in a pretty decent sized roll. Comes with the cool rolling tool, and it comes with a cutting tool. I normally don't use a rolling tool too much, but it comes with it. I definitely wouldn't buy one. Honestly, I'll use the handle of a screwdriver. I use my thumbs, whatever I've got. To buy a special tool, I wouldn't do that. I didn't even know it came with that till just now. I've had this box of sound deadening material probably a year. This is Fat Mat. So it's fitting. I picked the right one. Let's go ahead and get this out of the box. Just a big giant roll of coolness. And it's going to keep the truck a little bit more stable temperature-wise. The air conditioning will work a little better. And the stereo will sound a little better. You won't hear quite as much road noise. There's a lot of benefits to using this stuff. I believe this is 50 mil. It's a little on the thin side. It still works. You can get the 80, I believe, is the next thickness up. That's probably a little bit better, but it's of course quite a bit more expensive. They seem to like to give big discounts on the 50 mil so they can move it. And in reality, you could put this around as much of it as you want, and then double it up in a couple of places if you really have some problem areas. You think like right over wherever your mufflers might be, around where your speakers might be to stop reverb right near the speakers and things like that. So let's stop talking and start applying this stuff. I'm gonna hold on to the box in case I don't use all this. I have bought way too much of this stuff. Now what I'll do is, some guys go measuring and they want to know the exact measurements, and yeah, no, we're not doing that. What I'm going to do is at least 2 of these in a couple inches, so I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to cut it right down here across the X's. It cuts pretty easily. The thicker stuff is a little harder to cut, of course. It's super sticky. Highly recommend wiping down the sheet metal you're going to apply it to with wax and grease remover, or like I did with brake clean. You also don't want to touch it too much because that hurts the tackiness just a little bit. It won't stop it, but it could affect it. This stuff is pretty gooey, so I'll stick it up here, and I don't want to stick all of it because I want to push it down into the cracks and crevices a little bit. Now you can lift it off and push it back down again and all that. I'm going to start in the middle. Now this is held by something. I can pull the rest of this off. As I get deeper into the roll, I suspect this paper will pull off a little easier. For some reason, the very outer layers seem to be the worst every time I've ever used this stuff. I really prefer the sheets, but they had a pretty good deal on this stuff, and it's like half the price of the Dynamat brand. So is the Dynamat stuff a little better? No, not if it's the same thickness. It's no better. So it costs more. Dynamat is like the Snap-on of sound deadening material. You know, if you like it and you want to have the name brand stuff, by all means, it's very good product. It's also very expensive. And the paper should have come off of here a little cleaner. I'm wondering if it's because it sat so long. I'm not really sure, but yeah, you can see why I'm not getting the roller out yet. I think I am gonna, but I don't really need it just yet. You gotta be careful on these edges. Sometimes they're kind of sharp. It is foil, so I try to push away and not bring my hand back across it or slide down the edge. Wherever you cut it, it could be sharp, so just keep that in mind. Won't be the end of the world, but you'll have a boo-boo. Not like you'll lose a finger over it. But if you don't like paper cuts, you won't enjoy yourself. See, I cut that a little long, which it's no big deal. It's just going onto this bracket a little more than I intended, that's all. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to roll it out. This was the gas tank bracket. I cut it off because I put a rear-mounted tank in this. I just cut it off. It used to stick up quite a bit. I doubt anyone's ever going to convert this back to factory stock and put the tank back behind the seat, so I just cut it. Keep working our way across. I'm going to put a little more on this than I normally would, just because I have so much of it. But you'll see, I'm not going to cover every square inch. If I stop talking, I can speed this up. Done, and then we'll come back when I'm a little further along. Finishing touches. Alright, that's about it here for what I'm shooting for. I got a couple of I used up that whole roll. Honestly, it's been a while since I've laid this stuff down, and honestly this did help a little bit too. I've always just used a screwdriver, but it's pretty tedious. And this roller thing, I wish it was a little wider. Maybe they had a wide one and a narrow one, honestly, because it did come in handy. A little easier on my hands using the roller. Same as a screwdriver, but it rolls. I went through that roll way faster than I thought I was gonna, but luckily I got a whole nother box of Kill Mat. So, and I actually have a couple of pieces I want to put behind here when I do the AC housing. I'm kind of stopping where I'm at right now. And you can see it's pieces, and it's not the prettiest thing in the world because I didn't cover every square inch, but I usually don't. And it's going to be covered with carpet, so no worries. The carpet's thick, it has padding on the back. You're not going to see patches through it or any of that stuff. All this is for is sound deadening. A little bit of heat control, but not much. It's the rubber transfers heat. It'll just take a while before it'll do it. So if rubber didn't transfer heat, the air pressure wouldn't go up in your tires when you drove down the road and the tires got hot, right? Anyway, I think this is about where we're going to end it for today. Real happy with the progress. We got a lot done today. I might have to mess with this wiper arm a little bit, tweak on that some, but let me give you the walk around here 1 second. All right, guys, we got the, I don't know if you saw the video, I'm going to have a separate video of putting the glass in the doors and putting the doors on the truck and putting all the window felts in. I did this side because I wanted to see for myself how the best procedure was to go about it, and then I filmed the right side. Went pretty well. I got mirrors too for the truck. I don't know if I want to put them on yet till no one's walking by in the shop a lot where they can get hit or bent or something. I don't know. Maybe that is pretty sturdy and it'll be okay. I'll think about that. But I sanded the patina. I started getting some of the patina action going around here. I told you guys I was going to sand this all so it kind of matched the door a little bit and leave the roof looking nice. We got the wiper cowl and the wiper arms on. That one wiper arm, I'm going to have to tweak that down a little bit because that's probably going to bother me. See how it's up like an inch on that one side. We got our cowl seal in. We got our side covers on. Side covers. Antenna we got in. I didn't film that because it was pretty simple, just a 10mm nut. I had a separate video about modifying the Jeep Cherokee rear wiper arms to fit the front of this. They fit right on these splines. Just that you got to make one for the left side. I believe this is the one that's unmodified, and the one for the left side I had to flip the arm over. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's on the channel. You see where I'm sanding getting the patina back. Got some of the pinstriping showing through a little bit. I'm thinking about having that redone a little too. I'm not sure. You guys let me know what you think. I'm thinking about adding some of this pinstripe and touching it up a little bit more, and then kind of putting a satin clear on the truck afterwards, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided on that. Proportioning valve, I haven't been able to bleed yet. I'm waiting for Joe or one of the other guys to come by today. I'll probably just go ahead and bleed that, and we'll be back where we started from with that, except it looks nicer. It's on the other side. And I fixed a little tiny leak I had. I could never get it to stop seeping out of the one port. And that bracket they had on that side, I'll show you what that was. This was the bracket they had to mount it on the other side of the master cylinder. It was just no good. So the bracket I have now looks a lot nicer, a little cleaner. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I really appreciate your company. I hope you got something from this video. If you're working on a project of your own, I hope it motivates you to get out there and do it. Get on your project. Pick a day like I do on Sundays. I at least put a few hours in every Sunday. Barring major family events, I'm going to work on my truck on Sunday. That's how it's gotten where it has in about a year. It's been a year and a few months now. I've probably got over 500 hours in it just on Sundays, and a little here, a little there at night during the week if I feel like it after work. Get out there and do it. I hope I motivate you a little bit to work on your own stuff. We're going to get this thing on the road here soon. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. Torque the like button on your way out because it really helps the channel. And don't forget to check out my Amazon store. I'm an Amazon affiliate, so if you buy something after clicking one of my links, it helps the channel out a little bit. And it's also much appreciated. Hope I see you in the next video, because you're awesome.